Okay, you're good to go. Please start that for me.
All right, so we call this meeting of the Winterville Planning and Zoning Board for March 15th to order. Welcome to all of our committee and staff. Do we have any excused absences?
Mr. Chairman, no, I haven't received anybody requesting an excused absence.
Okay. All right. So you've all had a chance to review the agenda for tonight's meeting. We ask for a motion to approve the agenda for the March 15th.
I so move.
A question.
Okay, question?
Yes, regarding the minutes. Whenever we're reviewing an item and someone had questions or whatever, those are, I don't see where they are noted from our last meeting. Or is that something that automatically gets incorporated or not? I remember.
Don's here. No.
Unless it is something particular, I have not been, we don't do verbatim minutes, that is word for word. And I typically don't enter every question and answer given, only if there is a decision made based on a question or an answer.
Okay.
Okay. Does that satisfy your question, Ms. Garner?
It does.
Okay, so we had a motion on the floor to approve the agenda. Can we get that motion again?
I so move.
Okay, it's been moved. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second. Please vote your upon roll call.
So we had a motion by Douglas Killian and second by, was that Darlene Gardner?
Yeah, her and Miss Peggy at the same time, so either one.
Okay. We'll give it to Miss Gardner this time. All right, so roll call, Gregory Monroe,
Aye.
Douglas Killian,
Aye.
Peggy Clybourne,
Aye.
Yay.
Margie Crawford,
Aye.
Rondi Fleming, Mr. Fleming, I'm showing you online, but I don't see where it's showing your mic is connected. And I don't see you, so if you want to turn your camera on and give us a thumbs up until you get it worked out, we're fine with that too. Until then, we'll move on. Tucker Moore. Here. So all with the exception of Mr. Fleming, they were affirmative, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so the minutes, the agenda stands approved. You've now had a chance to review the minutes from the February regular meeting. What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second. All those in favor, please vote upon roll call.
Gregory Monroe,
Aye.
Douglas Killian,
Aye.
Peggy Clybourne,
Aye.
Margie Crawford,
Aye.
Rondi Fleming, still not, I think he's having some technical difficulties. Darlene Gardner,
Aye.
Tucker Moore.
Yes.
Okay, new business staff.
All right, I'm gonna share my screen here. Hey, Mike, saw you just joined. We just approved the agenda and the minutes, so we're moving on to new business now. So you should see my screen being shared. All right, can you guys see my presentation?
Yes.
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 All right, so the only thing we have on the agenda tonight or the only action item we have is some zoning ordinance amendments. So I'm going to run through those. Most of them are pretty simple. The The one we'll spend the most time is our architectural design standards. But if you guys have any questions, or if I'm moving too fast, just stop me and we can go over anything in detail or in more detail. So just a summary. So what we're going to go over is some mini warehouse clarification. So basically all we're doing is removing, the request is remove this use from all zoning districts except industrial, and add self-storage units to the description for the use type. Just for clarification, mini warehouses and self-storage units are basically the same thing, but some people don't correlate, so we're just going to add that. There's still some reference to Pitt County in section 14.2. This is where Pitt County used to actually enforce the building code within the town. So that was still in our zoning ordinance, so we're going to remove that because obviously we do our own building inspections now. And then section or special requirement 23 for ABC sales for on-premise consumption, we're going to request that exclude that property separation requirement from central business district. And then the big one we're going to go into for the most detail is we're going to add a section to our architectural design standards, which will be the multifamily residential design standards. All right, so any questions so far? Thought I heard somebody talking, so I'm going to make sure I'm not moving ahead without addressing anything. So the first thing is our mini warehouses. So in our table of permitted uses, mini warehouses are allowed in. You can see here, everything that I've got a red line strike through is what we're going to remove, and anything that's highlighted in yellow is what we're going to add. So you can see right now this use is allowed in a multi-family residential area, central business, general business, commercial neighborhood, and intermediate commercial. So the request is to update the ordinance so they're only allowed within the industrial use, and I'll run through some reasons why. Basically, when you look at a self-storage unit or a mini warehouse, the character design and land uses generally are not complementary to residential areas of town. So most of our commercial business and all the other districts except industrial are within close proximity to residential. So we feel like it's just a non-complementary use. Typically, they're going to be large metal buildings with numerous roll-up doors that give that industrial feel, and they are large buildings with large amounts of impervious surface. So the stormwater aspect and next to a residential area or even a commercial area at that point, it becomes something we're just trying to limit to our industrial district. With that being said, has anybody got any questions on that one?
No?
Okay. Yeah, and that, Winterville is one of those. We're in the situation where we're boxed in on all sides, so we're kind of on an island, and we're not making any more land. So we want to make sure we use what we've got to the best of the ability we've got it. So that's one of the other reasons, obviously. So you can see here in section 14.2, this is where it talks about building permits and zoning compliances. It's just something that's been overlooked for the past, I don't know, every time we've updated our ordinance the past 6, 7, 8 years maybe, because I think we got building inspections within the town in 2014 or 15, I can't remember. But anyway, it says the County of Pitt is responsible for the provision of building inspection services within the corporate limits and within the extraterritorial jurisdiction of the town of Winterville. Well, obviously, that's not the case, so we want to make sure we update our ordinance accordingly. So that's pretty simple. We're just removing that reference to Pitt County. So this one, in our special requirements to the table of permitted uses, ABC sales for on-site or on-premise consumption, we're requesting to remove that property separation requirement just within the central business district. So, and I'll note, so that'll be the language that's added, really simple, and it's not unlike what we do with parking or off-site parking requirements. So central business district, we treat it a little bit different just because it's kind of the hub of town, and the central business district is so small. So we want to make sure we treat it a little bit different, but at the same time, we're not going to change up. So if you'll read with me here, the additional requirements for special requirement 23 is also frontage and parking. So the main entrance of the building shall be toward property zoned for non-residential uses. That'll stay the same. And parking related to establishments shall be located no closer than 30 feet to the property line of abutting residentially zoned property. That'll stay the same. So the only thing we're talking about really is that property separation from a residentially zoned piece of property, which is that 200-foot mark. So, and I'll kind of show you. So here's our central business district, and it's kind of, I hope you guys can see it good, but it's kind of that orange color right in the middle of our screen. So there's really a limited amount of central business we have, but you can see all the colors around it are primarily going to be residential. So if we're talking about, just for instance, the downtown buildings that just got purchased and the current owners is going through renovating them. A couple of those buildings would be right on that threshold of about 185 to 200 feet away from some residentially zoned property. So if they were trying to recruit a restaurant to go in there, that restaurant would be able to go in there, but they wouldn't be able to serve alcohol. So with our commercial or our central business district, obviously it's pedestrian driven, but we also want it to be destination driven. So we want to have that ability for a restaurant to come in and be able to operate just like any other normal restaurant would be in the area, and not have a disadvantage from one end of central business district to the other. So that's why we want the conformity to make sure it gives everybody a kind of an even playing field out there.
Brian,
That's that. Yes, ma'am.
so I have a question. Can you put your pointer where the development or the buildings are that we were talking about? That's
Sure.
what I thought.
So
So what
yes, they're right
school-
here.
Okay. So what is the nearest school or residential?
So the nearest residential is going to be this little outlier right here. So this guy is zoned residentially as R6, I believe. So and it just does, when you pull a measurement from here to here, it's right at 200 feet. So most of these obviously are not going to change here. I mean, this is the library, this is the insurance agency, this is currently an antique store. Potentially they could change. I don't foresee anything, but the main activity we're seeing with entrance in our restaurants is particularly this area here. So you got it. So being having a little bit of foresight, knowing that, you know, the only recourse for them to open up would be potential variance or board of adjustment. We would just request that be removed from it, so it would alleviate just more things for the developer to do. And obviously, like I said, we want it to be, we want it to be able for a restaurant to go down there and you know, feel like they're welcome and come down here and set up and establish their business downtown.
And the nearest church is where?
I think so. The nearest church is probably going to be up on Mill Street. I think well without a reach. And then you've got one that's actually operating as a church. I think he is sitting on this piece of property here. It's a small brick building.
No, no.
Worthington? I think
Say it
there's a
again,
church towards Worthington.
Yeah, that little one on Railroad.
Yeah, there's a small building right in here on the railroad. They're operating as a church, but in this area, really,
Brian, isn't there one right across from the Dixie Queen?
that's the one I'm talking about. That little brick building.
Okay.
Okay.
So in that area, they're going to have to still go by the other two requirements, which would be they couldn't have the entrance couldn't be toward a residential area, and the parking. But the entrance thing is really going to be what gets them. So I don't really ever see in this area as being viable for any type of restaurant or bar anyway. just because if they have an entrance this way, it's not going to work. If they have an entrance this way, it's not going to work, and because all this is residential, so so they wouldn't be able to do it. The only way they would be able to do it is kind of maybe to put them north and south, which those are very, very small lots in there, and they've got established businesses there already that kind of would lend you to believe that it wouldn't be that way. I'm not saying that they couldn't work it out. Somebody smarter than me maybe could, with a scale and a ruler, could work it out where they could do it. But I know this wasn't a traditional church. They just converted that small building into a church. I think.
Isn't your arrow, excuse me, isn't your arrow on Dixie Queen right now?
Yeah, so I'm trying to find. I think maybe it's on this. I have to pull up an aerial to really.
It's
hone in
across
on it.
kitty corner. Kitty corner from Dixie Queen is where it is. Existing. You're talking about the church, right?
Yes, sir.
Kitty corner from Dixie Queen there.
Yeah, right next to Winterville Machine Shop. There's a Benny Williams is the pastor.
Right. And I guess my question too would be, just as a, I don't know, as a courtesy or a heads up for them or any current businesses or residents, were they, I guess, mailed or informed somehow?
So typically on amendments like this, there's no requirement to do that. So there was none done. But I'll say we typically don't do it until the public hearing. So planning boards where we kind of, this board's really our sounding board. So when we move going toward it, that's what this one's for. So we can kind of get through it and see where we're standing, especially with your advice and with your feedback.
Yeah, there is another church. Actually, it just came to me, the name of it, at 2506 North Railroad Street. So I'm thinking they're going to be farther away than that residential lot that you pointed to initially. Mm-hmm. But they are right on Railroad. And I think it would be, I don't know if it's required, but I think it would be a good idea to at least make the attempt to, out of courtesy, let them know.
I think that's what the public hearing. That's what the public hearing is for. At the town council holds, Darlene.
Yeah.
Yeah, and and I see there's total merit in what in that as well. So when you're changing something like that, it's I guess from staff's perspective, it's such a limited area that would affect anything new, and especially existing churches. From the scope of what we've kind of seen, really the southern part of the central business district was where it was going to affect anybody, if anything. I don't think, like I said, the main part of where we're seeing our concentration is right around here, just the central hub of central business district. So here, really the only outlier was kind of here and potentially this one if something ever happened with these properties, which is the bank, and then you've got the auto place here, which you never know what's going to happen with existing buildings. So that was our aim at it. But yes, ma'am, I see what you're saying. So
You're not sharing your screen anymore, Brian.
Okay, sorry about that. Keep going to that one. I don't know what's going on with it. Is that shared now to you guys?
Yeah, we can see it now. You were just
All
making
right.
reference a while ago. It wasn't showing.
I got you. So yeah, so I was just pointing to the original place where we were looking, where that central right across from town hall and you got Main and Mill and all that stuff in that general area. So, any additional questions?
Yeah, so based on what we were just discussing, and you were pointing to the Dixie Queen, do they not serve, I know they don't serve liquor by drink, but doesn't they serve like beer and alcohol?
I don't know. They don't serve.
Dixie Queen does not.
No.
Okay.
No, Dixie Queen doesn't.
No.
There's no
Behind-
restaurants in that area that, because now across the street from is that Oyster Bar, right?
Main and Mill, yes, sir. They do serve, yes, sir. All right, any more questions or discussion on that one? Or if not, we'll move on to our architectural standards. All right. All right, so this is kind of the big one. I know obviously the separation requirement was a big one, but this, in terms of length and substance, this one is going to be kind of lengthy. So one of the major recommendations of the comprehensive land use plan we did back in the latter part of 2019 was to require that higher density developments meet design criteria. Those design criteria would essentially emphasize architectural detail, quality materials, streetscape standards, and amenities and open space. So hopefully this is what we've kind of pulled together. We didn't recreate the wheel. We found some good language that other growing communities are using and are getting a lot of multifamily stuff or multifamily developments in. So we took what we could find with other growing communities and kind of tailored it to the town of Winterville's needs. So I'm going to go through this as succinctly as possible. Please stop me anytime you guys got a question. But I did want to point out that it definitely, there's where we were talking about it in our comprehensive plan. So just requiring higher density developments to have architectural detail, quality materials, streetscape standards, all that good stuff. And then we went as far as to actually kind of show some of those renderings. This is just kind of a single family home showing, but this one's kind of washed out in that picture, but being so small. Purpose and intent. So this will be a total, you guys should have this in your agenda packet as well, where I gave a summary of what it's going to look like in the ordinance. But these multifamily residential design standards supplement the applicable zoning district and use-specific standards of this ordinance by providing the minimum requirements for design and configuration of multifamily development within the town's planning jurisdiction. They are intended to do the following. So just want to emphasize that these are supplemental regulations, so they still have to abide by everything else that's in the zoning ordinance. That means dimensional requirements, setbacks, all that good stuff. But these will be intended to ensure multifamily development takes place in a manner consistent with the context, scale, and proportion of surroundings, promotes greater compatibility between new multifamily development and other allowable use types, particularly adjacent residential single-family detached dwellings. So that's just saying we're trying to be as cohesive as possible when we've got a multifamily development right next to a single-family subdivision. So establish expectations for minimum level of quality, encourage creativity in design and promote individual property identity, create neighborhoods which enhances architectural and visual interest, and preserve property values and project public and private investment. So these will apply to new multifamily dwellings, new triplex, quadruplex dwellings. They'll also apply to multi-unit residential structures where within a continuing care retirement community use, and any new assisted living facilities or nursing homes. So there'll be street networks. The requirements there will be on-site, including new streets. Interconnectivity network of streets shall be provided to the maximum extent practical. Streets shall connect to adjacent existing streets outside the development. This is not unlike our subdivision ordinance. So we want interconnectivity between developments. So one, it provides a good walkability factor, and two, it gives emergency vehicles access to to get in and out unhindered. So vehicular driveways into the development with 10 or more dwelling units shall be at least 100 feet away from any major intersection and to the maximum extent possible. Driveways shall be consolidated in order to reduce curb cuts and to maximize the extent practical. Again, not unlike what was already in our design manual. So most of this stuff is pretty standard. Building orientation, so buildings that abut streets shall be oriented parallel to the street rather than being oriented at an angle or even perpendicular to that point. So on corner lots, the long axis of the building shall be parallel to the longest frontage unless such orientation is incompatible with adjacent existing development. And we've actually got some figures where I'm going to show you in a second. And buildings with multiple building developments shall be clustered in order to define open space and recreation areas and develop entry points. So this will actually be figure 10A. So this will show our lot so you can see, hopefully you guys can see it pretty well, but A, buildings abutting streets oriented parallel to the street. So it's pretty simple. If you're going to go next to a street, it's got to be parallel. Corner lot buildings, the longer axis parallel to the longest lot frontage. So you see here, you got longer frontage here, so it's pretty standard. Buildings clustered, so you, instead of having them spread out, we want them clustered so that it'll define that open space, so you can have that open space and some amenities out here. And then you can see the vehicular entrance has to be 100 feet from street intersection, so it has to be, that would be at least 100 feet or more. Now, of course, we would rely on DOT to control access, or we would have to rely on DOT to provide permits to access off their roads, which is standard. DOT controls access to their roads, and they issue their own driveway permits. But this would ensure that they would be have more of a chance to be in compliance with DOT as well. All right, so building entrances. The facades of buildings abutting streets shall be configured so the entryways to individual dwelling units or shared entrances face the street. Access to upper floor dwelling units shall be obtained from shared internal entries. In no instance shall walkways to individual upper story dwelling units take place on exterior of the building. Individual ground floor and shared entryways shall be sheltered from the weather by either one, or recessing the entrance at least 3 feet into the inside the primary ground floor facade, or two, inclusion of an overhead architectural treatment that extends outward at least 3 feet from the primary facade. So buildings subject to these standards shall maintain a consistent level of architectural detailing and composition on each building facade facing the street, and they shall provide a minimum of 3 of the following architectural elements. So this is, give them a list of things they've got to do, and they can pick 3 from this, or they can go more, but they have to have at least 3. So, and I'll run through the 12 that we've given them. So you have a covered porch, 1 or more dormer windows, eyebrow windows, awnings or overhangs, decorative moldings, shutters, pillars, posts or pilasters, 1 or more bay windows, multiple windows with wide trim, corniced parapets or eaves with wide trims, or they can do integral planters that incorporate landscaped areas and places for sitting.
Hey, Brian?
So, yeah.
Hey, I was just curious, are any of these multifamily residentials going to be gated or fenced in any way?
So we won't require it to be, but if they are, that would be, above and beyond what we would ask.
Wouldn't it be kind of it looks unprofessional if some people have theirs fenced in and others don't, because the fence have varying heights and that doesn't look appealing. What do you think?
I wouldn't disagree with that. I think if they're going to have gated communities, we would have to work really closely with them anyway from an emergency services standpoint. So we would be really closely involved with how that's achieved and how it's going to look for sure. I think what you would see for the most part, in my experience, a multifamily development that's going to be gated. It's probably going to be in a nursing unit or assisted living facility. Those typically restrict access. But for the most part, I haven't seen, especially trending in our area in the east, I haven't seen a whole lot of developers interested in having to maintain a gated multifamily, just because you're going to have that's just additional maintenance on them, potentially more staff to have like in maybe a guardhouse or something up front. So these aren't typically going to be these requirements aren't going to be really concerned with a gated community, or not geared toward a gated community, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I was just concerned because it really brings down the physical aspects of a property when this person want to put a gate up and this one wants to, and it's different heights, and then they don't care for it and paint it and everything. So I think it's a good idea that that's not going to be like standard.
Gotcha.
Okay.
All right.
But we have a
So,
fence ordinance, don't we, Mr. Jones, that would fall under, if that was the case?
Yeah, that's right. So if there are fences, there's a standard. They have to keep them, at least the maintenance of them up. So that would fall under code enforcement. We would make sure that code enforcement would issue a violation there, and they would have to make sure it's brought up to code.
Okay.
So just a little bit more on the building side. So garage entries, loading and service entries, utility rooms, stairs, elevators, or similar features shall not occupy more than 20% of the width of the building. We just don't want it to be one big garage opening or one big, entry or outlet anything. So attached street-facing garages serving individual dwelling units shall be recessed at least 3 feet inwards from the primary first floor. That's so we don't have these big snout houses, so all you see is a garage first and then a house second. We want to make sure it's architecturally pleasing with the house, and you don't just see the garage. Developments with 3 or more principal buildings shall provide variation in the building size, shape, and height. That way we don't just have, multiple just big boxes sitting there. So this one's a little bit hard to see, especially on my end. I hope you guys can see it. But again, these would be the 12 we talked about with covered porches. So it gives them examples of everything. So it's not something that's unattainable. We actually give a list and then show exactly what we're expecting it to be, so there's no surprises in our review or their design.
Brian, I didn't see, this is a small thing, I didn't see eyebrow windows, letter C. I was just curious what it looked like. And I couldn't find it anywhere, but in case you find it, just let me know.
It's not up there. I thought we had it up there, but basically an eyebrow window. It's not going to be anything. It's more going to be an architectural feature that's going to make the shape of the window look like an eyebrow, I guess. Not to be elementary about it, but more of like a bay window type design. We'll have to fix that though. Glad you caught that.
Okay.
So when we've got a corner or 2 buildings coming together, so building corners that are adjacent to one or more streets shall include at least one of the following features. And I'll just go ahead and go to so they'll have to have the plaza or pedestrian gathering space, the ground floor pedestrian entrance, a distinctive architectural feature or changes in the roof type, or the wraparound balcony. So again, it's kind of laid out there, shows you what we're expecting to see if that's going to be your configuration. So building massing, I'm going to go on to the figure 10.5, show that. So here we're just looking at, upper story facades, they only project beyond ground floor footprint with window bump outs. So you can see that here. So we like I said, we don't want those snout looking features. So So the two-story building option, second story is in line with the facade of the first story, and the second story set back from the first story facade, or 3 or more story buildings, upper story facade set back from the second or first story facade. So you can see that, how they've done that in those diagrams. So when we talk about building articulation, really it's just talking about the design elements, and we're talking about both horizontally and vertically that help create that streetscape of interest. So we want to make sure it's appealing. We want to make sure that when people are riding down the street and they see one of these neighborhoods, that it creates a kind of experience, or you know, something that's visually appealing. So you can see just the detail in here. You can see this, the minimum of 2 foot of articulation for every 35 feet is a big one. So they make sure that if they're going to do something, it's got to be at least 2 foot, but it will have to be every 35 feet. Projections extend to the top of the highest story, you can see here. D, so it's showing this is not a projection because it does not extend to the highest story. So they couldn't count that. So they have to get this out further. So again, another one, roof form. So development shall incorporate pitches between 3 to 12 or 12 to 12, or should incorporate parapet walls with a dimensional cornice around the flat roof. So alternative roof forms or pitches are encouraged for small roof sections, and buildings with eaves shall be configured such that no single horizontal eave continues for more than 60 linear feet without being broken up by a gable, a building projection, or articulation feature. Again, we're just trying to make sure that there's just some detail into it, so it's not just a plain Jane box with a roof on it. Buildings with overhang eaves and roof rakes shall extend at least 6 inches past supporting walls. That's a really big one in my opinion. So if you guys have seen houses that are being built around here without eaves that overhang, it really looks like bad work. So you want to make sure that that's one of those things we want to make sure that it's done and done right. So building materials and colors. So this is obviously something that's pretty standard in all zoning ordinances, but we want to make sure we included it here. We already have sections where this is pretty much echoed, but this one's a little bit more detailed. But we want the predominant exterior material to be brick, stone, or cementous or other masonry material. They shall include at least 2 primary exterior materials on any single building that gives it some depth. Changes in colors and materials shall take place internally at internal corners or in logical locations, such as building wings, bays, bump outs, recesses, and in no instance shall exterior materials or colors change at outside corners. And the heavier or more bulky exterior materials shall be located beneath or below the lighter materials. So again, with the materials, we're also going to have prohibited materials. Can't have smooth face concrete block, corrugated metal, no vinyl siding, or synthetic stucco within 2 feet of the grade. So here's another figure we're given, so you can see, you got a minimum of 2 materials on each building. It gives it some depth. The material changes at the logical locations, and then the heavy materials are below the lighter materials. So just make sure there's just some detail, but at the same time it gives it some design elements that give it some character.
Brian.
Yes, sir.
Brian. Doug Killian, got a question. You said no vinyl siding. How about hardy board or clapboard?
Like the hardy plank, but that's basically the cementous type material. So it's going to be that pressed. Most of them, that hardy plank is going to be cement in nature. So that'll be fine. Yes, sir.
Okay. So it's basically wood clapboards or a hardy board. if they're gonna do it. Is that correct?
Yeah, or I mean, they could go back, so they, brick, stone, cementuous, or other masonry material, that's the predominant. So if they wanted to go with I guess technically if they wanted to go with the wood, they could.
Can you go
but I
back
don't
one
think-
slide?
So I'm sorry?
Could you go back one slide? It showed the mixture. No, forward that, I'm sorry. Yeah, up in the upper right-hand corner and in the lower right side, it shows mixture of clapboards and brick. And I would wonder what we would use in under this ordinance in that case.
So I would assume this is probably some hardy plank or something like that. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I'm asking, what do they do there? If you can't have vinyl in the clapboard area, what do they do?
Yeah, I mean they would be using that cementuous plank or they could do some other types. I mean even here they've got the kind of that wood look here. But yeah, they would just have to find another material.
Why was the vinyl rejected or
Not acceptable.
why is it not acceptable?
Just because we felt like that's what we're seeing, especially on these when you start looking at multifamily developments and they are allowed to use vinyl, typically they're going to use the cheap or not good looking vinyl. And that's typically what we've been seeing in other developments, and from what we've seen with other communities and other growing towns doing this stuff. When they do allow it, it becomes unsightly because for whatever reason the vinyl they use on these it warps really easily, so it starts deteriorating the look of a place really, really quick. So we want to try to get away from that. I think most of the time on a vinyl siding for a house, it's acceptable because the maintenance from an individual property owner standpoint is generally a little bit better. So I think it's hard to exclude it from a single family residential area, but from this perspective, I think it works. So that was probably the reason.
Thank you.
Ryan, when you say predominant exterior material, are you saying that is going to be, say, 50% of the building or more, or is it just saying that you want this material to be what stands out when you say predominant?
I think that's a really, really good question, Mike, but and we kind of left it gray, but I think predominant, if the definition would be the one that, takes over, that's what your eye's going to see. So you're going to predominantly see that material. So I don't want to, we were kind of intentional on not putting a number on it, just to give some design leeway to the developer. So taking away certain materials, it does limit the way they do stuff. So we want to make sure we don't nail them, back them into too much of a corner. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. So accessory structures, this one's pretty easy stuff, but just make sure detached garages on corner lots shall be located to the side or rear of buildings. Access to accessory structures shall be provided from alleys or secondary streets. Accessory buildings shall include exterior materials, colors, and roof form designed to be consistent with the principal structure. And accessory structures shall not physically obstruct pedestrian entrances. And they should, central refuse collections, so garbage cans, shall be enclosed in areas located near the rear of the building. Except for nursing homes, development subject to the standards shall not include a gate. So we did put it in here, Mr. Fleming. Shall not include a gate or obstruction that blocks access to site for vehicles, bicycles, or pedestrians. That's where I got the nursing homes thing from earlier. I knew we had looked at it. Off-street parking serving gas shall be evenly distributed throughout the development. Shared refuse collection containers shall be evenly distributed throughout the development. Detached garages or carports shall not be located between principal building and the streets, and utilities shall be provided underground. And that's all I got. I know it's that's a lot to take in, and but I'll be happy to answer any questions if I'm able.
I've got a question, but maybe it's someplace else covered. How about the green plantings or beds or yards or lawn? Huh? Is there a standard for that someplace?
So yeah, so when we're looking at multifamily, so like I said when we started this, these are in addition to regulations already in place. So when we're looking at site plans for it, we would treat it just like a subdivision. So they would have to provide recreation just like a subdivision. So our subdivision ordinance requires at least 1,200 square feet of green or open space for every single dwelling unit, or they can do a payment in lieu of. So we would treat it the exact same scenario there.
Thank you.
Oh, will they, I don't know if this is somewhere later up here, but will they have a section to the side where they would put their refuse and trash, or is the trash pushed out in front of their yards?
Yeah, typically with these, they're going to have what you'll usually typically see on it is a three-sided bay with a door on the front. So they'll have a centrally located one where all their tenants would have it, would have access to it, and then they'd have a collection company come by and pick it up.
Okay.
So yeah, they would. Yep. So not unlike a commercial or business that you see around town with those three-sided ones, and it has to be located, in the rear or the side of the door. So it has to be back. It can't be, obviously, can't be predominant and can't be seen.
Right. Well, for what it's worth, I like what I saw. I really did.
Yes, so Mr. Chairman, we'd asked for a favorable recommendation to move forward to Town Council to put this on their agenda. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, you've heard the presentation, you've seen the information in your packet. You've had a chance to ask your question of staff. What is the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion to approve the recommendations.
And I second.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second. Please vote upon roll call.
Second.
So we had Tucker Moore motion, and who was the second?
Rondé Fleming.
Mr. Fleming. All right. Roll call, Gregory and Monroe.
Aye.
Douglas Killian.
Aye.
Peggy Clybourne.
Aye.
Margie Crawford.
Aye.
Rondé Fleming.
Aye.
Darlene Gardner.
Aye.
Michael Weldon.
Aye.
And Tucker Moore.
Aye.
Okay, staff report.
First off, I meant to open with this. Let me off up here. But as you all have probably heard by now, Mr. Robert Briley passed away a couple weeks ago. So I did want to acknowledge how much I appreciated Mr. Briley. He had been a board member in some capacity with the town of Winterville since 1996, which is crazy to me that he's devoted that much time to the town. We as staff in the town are going to try to do something special for his family. Don't know exactly what that looks like yet, but we're trying to make sure we do it and do it right. So we're taking our time on it. But I did want to acknowledge Mr. Briley tonight and pass along condolences to the board, to his family, to everybody he's worked with. But that being said, I did want to let you know the Eli's Ridge and Villa Grande did get approved by town council at their last meeting. So you'll start seeing houses go up in there shortly, I'm sure. Both of those neighborhoods, I think, are going to add a lot to town. So hopefully they're going to have at least about 100 houses going up pretty soon. But other than that, you guys have my monthly report in your agenda packet, and I will be coming before you guys with some subdivision ordinance amendments, hopefully next month. So staying really busy in our department. But other than that, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. And no, I was not aware of that, Mr. Brawley. He's has been very supportive of me since I've been on the board. And so please, whatever the county, the town does or your staff does, please offer, or include the sentiments from this board as well.
Yes, sir.
Please, yes.
Are there any other comments from board members?
Mr. Chairman, as always,
All
a
right.
couple of questions. How do we stand on replacements? Willie resigned and Roberts passed away. Where do we stand on replacements?
So right now, Tucker Moore is our alternate, so he'll move into a regular position. And then we're currently we're trying to get applications. We've got a couple on file, but we really need ETJ members. It's really, really hard to get any interest from residents in the ETJ. So we're trying to drum up support or some interest out there. Hopefully I'll have the appropriate number of applications, or just any applications really, to council within the next month or two. If you guys know of anybody, send them my way. That I definitely would encourage you to encourage your friends or family or anybody within the town limits that would be willing to serve. And if you think they would be a good addition to the board, by all means, encourage them to apply and get their application in. So we really, as you guys know, this board's really important on what we do in town. So we really need some good members, some dependable members, and people who are would be champions for the town of Winterville.
If you just have them contact me, I'll get them the application.
Okay. Yeah, and if
Whoever, they can call me directly.
So Don, our town clerk, Don Harvey, was saying you can have them reach out to him, but if you reach him out to me, or get them to reach out to me as well, I can pass them on to Don, but the applications will go through Don's office.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
another question. This is general, Brian. Seems to me that the apartment house that was going on near 11 by the Red Roof Church, apparently that's fallen through because I see the property for sale sign on it. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't think they, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but they never even took the sign down. So all of that, when they did the rezoning, was contingent on them getting funding from the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency. They did not get funding in the last round, so they have applied again. They should know shortly. I say shortly, on their time frame is short. We should know around summertime, mid-summertime, if they got their funding. If so, then that sale would go through and they would start their project. So, it's not totally off the table yet, but they just haven't gotten it done. So it's still in the works. Hopefully it'll get done, and we'll see. We'll know, like I said, by about midsummer.
And following up on that question, what we looked at tonight, if it's approved by the town council, that would affect that development, correct?
It would, yes, sir.
Thank you. That's good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any other thing from anyone else on the board? Comments? Okay, there'll be none. We'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, I think Miss Peggy was cut off there, but we got Miss Peggy, motion, Mr. Mike, second. All those in favor, please vote upon roll call.
All right, roll call. Gregory Monroe,
Aye.
Douglas Killian,
Aye.
Peggy Clybourne,
Aye.
Margie Crawford,
Aye.
Rondi Fleming,
Aye.
Darlene Gardner,
Aye.
Michael Weldon,
Aye.
Tucker Moore.
Yes.
Thank you, guys.
Good night, everyone.
Good
Thank you.
night.
Good night.
Aye.